This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Oh, I don't hear you.
I hear you. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was just me, but I can't hear you.
Your mic's not on, though. It's not.
Oh, now it's good when you got to turn on the mic. It's that really helps out, actually. Just so you'll know, turn on the mic cam when you do things, okay?
Hey, trust me. I have my fair share. I call them user errors, where I'm like, what's going on? Like, why can't I hear you? Why can't I? Oh, push the on button.
Yeah. So my dumbass didn't turn on the mic there. So yes, apologies there on that one. So I think Joe Shad somebody just told me, tweeted out that the Dolphins #1 in the league in rushing yards, in rushing average, but 13th in attempts. And this was the same bullshit last year that you had a great average. The problem was your attempts. You apologized to Mostert. You talked about it publicly, all that bullshit. Same shit is happening all over again. Mike McDaniel refuses to use a very good running game on a consistent basis. And I don't understand. And the stupid excuse, by the way, a lot of stupidity going on here. When you call play and it doesn't work, it's a bad play. No, at one point or another, we have to just say you're continually making bad decisions. It's not that it didn't work. It's that you're not doing the right things. So what is it with Mike McDaniel and the running game, bro? Why is he allergic to it?
I think there's a fascination, which I understand to an extent, but with just getting Tyreek into and the flow of the passing game. And I wonder for this particular game in particular, how much of this was you look at this Titans team. They were 31st in the league in passing defense. They were top 5 in the league in run defense. And you say, the numbers say we beat this team in the air, right? Which that's probably true. I thought that was the case going in the game. But at some point, whatever the Titans did, they had a good game plan for the pass. You adjust. And I did not see that adjustment as far as the consistency of the run the way I would have liked to see it.
And you were succeeding. You were succeeding. You were running the ball on that. Early on, it was a 6. When he had the 9, the 10, 11, and the 4-yard run and then got cute towards the end of the half and ruined that drive, you were averaging 6.7 yards per carry on the team that you're not supposed to run on.
Right.
So here's what I grew up with and what people taught me. The more you run, the easier it is to pass. So, keep it simple, stupid. It's all about KISS. And Mike McDaniel, for such a smart guy, is incredibly stupid. If you want to get to your pass, brother, run the shit out of the ball. And you'll bring all your linebackers in. You're going to open up the middle of the field. You're going to be able to throw because all of a sudden, if you keep hammering and hammering and hammering, they all get sucked in, and then that's when you hit them over the top. I don't understand why he doesn't have that patience.
Yeah. I think, like I said, I think a part of it was their scheme coming in and the fascination of getting the ball to Tyreek Hill. But you're right. The results should change that. You have Raheem Mostert, you have Achane. And the reality for me, at least, the offensive line was extremely banged up. They were struggling to pass protect. To me, those are the games where you say, we just got to get out of it. It may not be pretty. Tua may not throw for 300 yards. It may not help his MVP, quote unquote, case. It may not help Tyreek get for 200,000 yards, but it helps us get out of this game and get the win, right? And so sometimes I think that's the decision that has to happen. And even if it's ugly, even if we, it shortens the game, which would help them not allow the Titans to come back. And it also allows you to do what's working. And so this was definitely a game I think they should have leaned on the run more. And it cost them too often in this game. And like I said, I'm going to ask Mike, I'm going up to the facility in a couple hours, and maybe he gives me an answer, maybe he doesn't. But too much of this game, it kind of felt like the Dolphins were like, we can get away with this because we're playing the Titans.
He's not gonna.
Like the fact that Tyreek Hill was standing on the sideline for 2 quarters, and then all of a sudden he runs out. It kind of felt like we can get away with not having Tyreek in, keep him on the sidelines and get him for the Jets game. And then halfway through the third quarter, like, oh crap, we might actually lose. We need him. Go back in there. You have Teron Armstead and Javon Holland inactive. Could those guys have gone? Or was this a situation where we're being, like they've been much of the season, careful and saying, hey, we're willing to hold them out and get them back later in the season? Like, it just seemed like a lot of the decision-making, the play calling, everything was on the basis of, let's just get out.
So basically you're saying that Mike McDaniel's not a very good coach, apparently.
No, I would never say that because I think he is a really good coach. But I can tell you this. I did think that he got outcoached by Mike Vrabel yesterday.
He's not a very good coach. Not yet. He hasn't earned that right yet.
I think that he has. I think he has.
No, he
I don't think that he's proven that he's I don't think that he's proven that he can win playoff games yet. But I would say I've seen enough that Mike McDaniel is a good coach. Huh?
He ain't Mike Vrabel. That's a good coach.
Mike Vrabel has more playoff wins and more experience, for sure.
Exactly.
And I will tell you what,
you don't get
coached by Mike Vrabel yesterday, for sure.
You don't get that label until you can outcoach Mike Vrabel and until you can win playoff games. He's 3-8 in primetime games now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's no excuses anymore for Mike McDaniel, dude. You know what I'm saying? And he continues to make stupid decisions with the running game. He is a brilliant offensive mind, a mediocre game day coach. Mm-hmm. Okay. Just because he can out scheme you at times with fast guys, at times you have to show me who you are, Eric Spoelstra. And so when you don't have what you need to work with, I need you to overcome and figure it out. And you can't do that. You keep throwing fades to Oompa Loompas when Cedric Wilson has already shown you that he can high point the ball, and you can't even use him in those situations last night. And then you've got Chase Claypool, and you can't figure out a small package to use that tall body to help out Tua. Instead, you've got an Oompa Loompa quarterback throwing to an Oompa Loompa receiver for fade patterns in the end zone. Now you're making it harder on your quarterback and harder on your receiver and harder on your team. It's terrible coaching, my man. So you can't earn that label until you win something significant. And Mike McDaniel has won nothing so far, except a bunch of yards and points. He really hasn't won anything significant.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that it's very fair to question Mike McDaniel. Like, for as much as praise he gets, you've got to get some criticism when there's elements of your coaching style that have not translated. And whether people consider it an unfair knock or not, the reality is when big moments have shown up, either against elite teams or in primetime settings, the Dolphins have shown a consistency not to show up. Right. And that typically lays on the coaching. I was in the locker room after the game, and you hear Bradley Chubb talk about, we were aware of the playoff scenarios and what could happen if this happens in the season. And he said, human nature, the reality is we're on cruise control. And it was abrupt, like, wait, what? First of all, because he was incredibly honest. I don't think players are usually that honest, but the fact that, you're looking about, a number one seed, and I don't think the Dolphins have done enough to overlook anyone. If anything, they should be proving to people that we're for real rather than look for, because that's what the criticism's been, right? That you're a paper tiger. And so this does not help those claims. The fact that you say we took the foot off the gas with 3 minutes left,
you're a nobody. You're a nobody. The Dolphins are nobodies.
Because I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this, and I will. I talked about this on NFL Network just a little bit ago. I was on for Insider Show, and we talked about this game I was at last night. And I said, there's going to be a lot of people on these Monday or Tuesday morning shows who are going to panic and say, the season's over. This is an example why this team's not going to do anything. This is why they're pretenders, right? And I won't go that far. I still think they're a playoff team. I still think that they are going to win a division. Will they win a playoff game or two? I'm not sure. That's going to be up to them. But I will say this. That's all to say. I'm not panicking. But I will say this. Hearing what I heard in the locker room was a concern. Seeing how the offense functioned when Tyreek was not there, just kind of everybody out of place. The communication was off. It just seemed like this team did not know how to function without him was a concern because he's been banged up this year. If you lose him, does that mean your season's over? It seemed like it last night. And the third concern, and this might be the biggest one, that offensive line who has been held up by paper mache essentially for the season of just entering this guy and Butch Berry's going to do a miracle here and this guy does this and this guy fills in. It's finally starting to show some cracks of these injuries. Last night, 5 sacks, Tua pressured on nearly 40% of his snaps, and they're down essentially 4 starting offensive linemen. You know, Teron was out. You got Robert Hunt out. You lose Connor Williams to the injury. We're going to be eager to see what his injury status is. It didn't look great. And if that's a season-ending injury, now you've lost another offensive lineman for the year. Isaiah Wynn's already out. Now you lose Connor Williams, and then you got Teron and Robert Hunt, who will be back, but are right now out. And so that's a major concern. It's hard to keep things afloat when you lose 4 offensive linemen. And so those 3 concerns pop up on my radar, especially as the schedule gets tougher. You got a Jets team this week, which say what you want about the Jets and their offense. They came off a 30-6 win over the Texans, and they seem to have some sort of resurgence, and that defense is always tough. Then you got the Cowboys, the Ravens, and the Bills. All 3 teams, Cowboys and the Ravens, 2 of the best in the league. And the Bills are probably going to be competing for a playoff spot. And if you don't handle your business, they might be competing for your division spot.
Right.
And so that's a very dangerous end of the season stretch to have all of those issues I just mentioned. And so I'm not panicking on the Titans' loss as a whole. But I am worried about what's ahead, and the difficulty has increased tenfold.
What I would like for you to ask Mike McDaniel, okay, is last year you had a very high average. Your running backs were over 4.5 yards a carry, yet you were the bottom of the league in attempts. This year, once again, you're at the top of the league at average. You're at the top of the league at rushing totals, but you're in the middle of the pack again for attempts. What is it? Why is it that you apologized to Mostert last year? You said you didn't run enough. Why have you not used more of the strength of your team? Because clearly the passing game doesn't get you through in the tight moments. So why not lean on the run more? Why is it that he will not lean on the run? I know you can't ask if that long, but that's what needs to be asked, because that's what's making him be a mediocre game day coach, is that the food that he has on the table to create a meal, he is creating the wrong meal. He's using the food the wrong way, and he's not complimenting his quarterback. He's not complimenting his team. You know what I mean? It's just like what I told you. Fade patterns to an injured Tyreek Hill is even dumber than just fade patterns to Tyreek when you have Chase Claypool there and you have a Cedric Wilson, who you can teach those 2 guys just a couple of routes for fade patterns. They can learn that, dude, and you refuse to do it. It's just the coaching decisions have to be questioned now, and especially the run game, because as you said, you're struggling to pass block and you continue to pass. Where does that make any sense? Because your backups actually still do a solid job running the ball. Liam Eichenberg made some mistakes yesterday, but go watch some of his blocking in some of those runs. He actually put some really good blocks in there. So I actually think Liam Eichenberg will play fine next week because he'll get a week of practice and all that. It was one of those things that he got thrown into the fire again after practicing a guard so much. And then it's just kind of hard, man. You know what I'm saying? So I bet you this week he'll play better. But again, help those guys. Help them hit people instead of them taking hits and figuring out where all the stunts and everything's coming from. Compliment your team more as a play caller. I don't think he does that.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some questions for Mike, right? And he's a second-year coach. There's still some for him to learn. And I think a lot of times we get obsessed with what he does right that you avoid the fact that he does make mistakes. Like, he is not a flawless coach, right? There's none that is, but because he's such a fun coach, we enjoy being around him. He's entertaining and he's smart, and he has a very good offense. It's easy to be blinded on some issues, right? And they've had issues throughout the season. They've had issues with short yardage, 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, running the ball in those situations. They have issues with infrequency of how often they want to run. Some games they run the ball 30, 35 times and they have a lot of success. And sometimes it's just not flowing the way they want. And then they have questions about how they handle on the road in particular against those top teams. This one obviously was at home, but on the road, like, these are questions that are essentially coaching questions. How do you get your team ready for those short yardage situations, for those situations where you control your amount of pass run balance, and situations where you're playing tough teams on the road? Those are tough challenges. Like, this one to me felt different because they were heavy favorites at home, and they've won every one of those games this year. This was to me, their first bad loss of the season. The other losses, you could say, hey, they're playing, the Chiefs, a Bills team who at that time looked like they were.
That was a bad loss. That was a bad loss.
I don't think the Bills in Buffalo is a bad loss. I think at that time,
28 points?
Yeah, I don't think that was a bad loss. I don't think it was a bad loss. I'm not saying it wasn't a bad loss like they played poorly. I'm just saying, like, I'm calling a bad loss like there's no way you should have lost that game type of
I get it.
Like, that to me is a bad loss. Like, the Cowboys lost to the Cardinals. Like, one of those games, like, how? You're like, what? This is one of those games for the Dolphins. Like, the Dolphins lost to the Titans. You're like, how? What?
Right.
Like, every team has had one of those losses. The Eagles lost,
Jets Chiefs.
Yeah, Jets Chiefs, right? The Jets, Eagles Jets, right? The Jets have got a couple teams that way, right? So it's those quote unquote losses where these teams that are clearly inferior record wise and talent wise beat you. That's what I consider a bad loss. And to me, this was the first one the Dolphins had where, like, there's no reason y'all should have lost to the Titans. And so I excuse them because I think every team can have one bad loss. It's just how you respond. And unfortunately for the Dolphins, their last 4 games are their most challenging stretch of games in the season. And so it does not give them some soft landing spot to bounce back.
What'd you think of Vic Fangio? Because I thought down the stretch he failed his team. He allowed Will Levis just to pick them apart, and he didn't pressure. He didn't send extra guys. And I understand, we've talked about this since the offseason, his team is not predicated on a lot of blitzing. I get that, but there was a time and a place to do some things. And last night I would have liked to have seen some extra pressure to try not just allow him to sit there. I saw it. He had a cigar. It had a 3-inch ash. And I saw Hopkins and a Walker run across the field, which takes him about 9 seconds. And then Will was able to put away the cigar and complete the pass. And there was no pass rush. So he had a lot of time back there to smoke cigars and everything, and no pass rush. What'd you think of Fangio towards the end of that game?
Yeah, I think the fourth quarter was definitely different than the first 3 quarters. I'd say the first 3 quarters, they actually played pretty well defensively. They got pressure. They didn't get sacks. Like, obviously, the Bradley Chubb missed sack that led to slamming of the helmet, led to 4 extra points. They hit him. That hit him. And a lot of Bradley's frustrations were, we were right there, and I should have got you down, right? Fourth quarter, it was different. It seemed like they ran a lot of 3- and 4-man rushes, and they just did not get home, which the reality is, and the Titans probably would tell you this too, their offensive line has been pretty bad. Like, they've been one of the worst offensive lines of football. They're playing a couple of rookies in that spot. And so that was a battle I thought the Dolphins would win. And to walk away with just, the little production they had, I think they had 1 sack maybe, and no pressure on that last 2 drives. I think he might have been pressure 1 time in 2 drives. And he just seemed at ease. Like, you got a rookie quarterback down 14. You're supposed to make him panic. And he just seemed like he was Tom Brady in that moment, just picking it through with no worry in the world. And so, to me, that's on Vic. I know a lot of times he doesn't like the blitz. That's not his philosophy. I get it. But to me, there's certain situations your job is to adjust to your situation. And their situations, they got a rookie quarterback who's only dropping back to pass. You've got to figure out something to make him uncomfortable.
Yeah, and by the way, he's got a little something to him, so he's got some ups.
Yeah,
Okay.
you thought he was Derrick Henry in the first half, trying to run people over every chance he got.
He's a tough son of a bitch because he took a pounding in that first half.
Yes,
and he easily could have folded the tent. And that kid was fearless the entire time. I give him a lot of credit. They got something there. I don't know if he'll turn into it, but there's something to work with there. He's got plenty of quarterback characteristics that you can build on, and toughness is definitely there for Will Levis. I got respect for him yesterday. That was strong. The Tua haters are going to be out in full force, even though this was a thorough team loss, because boy, everybody contributed to the whole thing. But the Tua haters are going to have some ammo, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is not going to be at the front of his MVP resume. This was not one of Tua's better games. You got to call it what it is. He did not play his best. Is he the reason they lost this game? No. There was other reasons, but Tua did not play his best game. And the reality is it opened a lot of eyes in that 2 periods where they didn't have Tyreek, just how out of sorts the offense was. Waddle didn't seem to be in the right spot for a route. Cedric Wilson didn't seem to know where to line up. And to me, that's on the quarterback. The quarterback's got to get the other guys ready when their guy is out. And so Tua's going to get some blame this week, and I think he should get some, but I think it's all relative. I think that, like you said, Tua's not the biggest issue of this game. And I think there's a bigger onus on the coaching, the readiness, and ultimately the defense giving up those two scores in 3 minutes.
Yep, I'm with you there. Follow him on Twitter at Cameron Wolfe. Catch his exceptional work there at the NFL Network. Cam, we will catch up on Friday, my friend. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Sounds good. All right, man.
You got it. Cameron Wolfe, baby. KSDT CPAs. Use that QR code, man. We're coming towards the end of the year. You got to get those taxes prepared for April, the business taxes, all of that. Reach out to our friends at KSDT CPAs. They will handle your business taxes, your personal taxes. And it really, by the way, it doesn't matter where you live because you can do all of that by phone. So call them 305-670-3370. They're also hiring. Seems like every company in this country pretty much is hiring. Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. They've got offices all throughout South Florida, and they opened up a new office in Charlotte, North Carolina. So if we got any listeners out there in Charlotte, North Carolina, or in South Florida, and you've got them accounting skills, please call our friends at KSDT CPAs. Trust me, they will listen to you, and maybe you'll be hired. Who knows? But reach out to KSDT CPAs to help your business grow and to help you personally with your taxes. Tell them that Big O sent you. Great people. KSDTCPA.com.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.